And first up for the week is going to be Scamps and Scoundrels, a LitRPG Gamelit adventure, The Bad Guys, book number 1, written by Eric Ugland. This story is 446 pages, $4.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. Just yesterday, Ben was a neckbeard weeb with a weakness for Red Bull and tendies. Today, he's got a new name, a new face, and a new body, and he's watching the Glaton City Guard fight a 20-foot-tall ooze that crawled forth from the sewers. Tomorrow, he'll need to find a guild to join, save a girl, steal a crown, and most importantly, convince an innkeeper about the gloriousness of chicken fingers. So there we go. Full disclosure, I received an advance copy for review. I purchased a copy when it became available. So the review portion of this, I'm a big fan of Eric Ugland's other series, the LitRPG series called the Good Guy series. I haven't read every single book. It's gotten close to getting like 8 out of 10 several times for me. And so I kind of had high expectations for this story because it's from the same author, set in the same universe. Unfortunately, I didn't connect with this as well as I did the other series. And part of that is probably I had high expectations. So anything that anything was probably going to feel a little disappointing, and this one did feel a little disappointing for me personally. But again, part of that is because I was such a big fan of, I am a big fan of that other series. From this series title, though, Scamps and Scoundrels and the Bad Guy, series book title, I was expecting the story to be about bad guys, oddly enough. Instead, the story is mostly about a kind-hearted thief that doesn't do a whole lot of stealing for most of this book. And there were just a few things that I couldn't help comparing this novel to the one that I already knew that I liked. And that's, whether you think that's fair or not, that's by the same series, by the same author, set in the same world. And so I was expecting some similarities. One of the things I really loved about the first book in the Good Guy series is that sense of discovery as the main character learns about the RPG world. In this novel, that isn't here, like, at all, in any way, shape, or form. There's a really huge info dump in the first half of the story, not even the first half, first quarter, where the main character essentially gets told everything, and he doesn't earn any of the knowledge he's receiving. And he actually gets a ton of advantages, from a place to stay, to equipment, to items he can sell for quick gold, and so he's automatically really rich. And even introduced to the world of rogues, thieves, and assassins, their entire network. And so he gets a huge number of advantages that he doesn't actually earn in this story. And that was one of the things that just didn't appeal to me. Because in LitRPG in general, one of the things that personally that I've always really enjoyed is like that progression of power, that earning of a power structure. And while some of that's here with the main character earning levels from fighting monsters and stuff and doing some quests, he gets such a big boost that a lot of that power and all the things that he earns later on feels cheapened because it feels like he didn't earn them in a way, like almost like his journey was paid to play to a certain degree. Yes, everything makes sense on the story, how I got everything. For the most part, I'll get into that in a second. But it was just one of those things that just didn't appeal to me, kind of lowered my enjoyment of the story. And it also felt very rushed in the industry. And part of that maybe the fact that the author is kind of counting on people coming into this series having read the other one. So like maybe he feels like they don't need such a long introduction into like the game world anymore. And that may very well be the case. It's definitely a story choice, and the author has total right to do that. I'm just saying it was one of those things that I saw as a contrast between these two series where this one didn't quite work for me because of that. Also, in game mechanics on the side of thing, everything on the game mechanics side is very much in line with what has already been set up with the story world from the Good Guy series. So that's all pretty much fine. The only thing I kind of got annoyed with was the fact that there is a respawn system in this world, and the main character doesn't die. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because it's one of those, it exists here. And I was just surprised that he didn't die even once. Even in like the other series, the main character at least dies occasionally because he loses. And so that doesn't exist here, unfortunately. It's just one of those like small little things like, oh, that would have made it feel like you're connecting to that series again. And just one of those little things that made this feel a little more fantasy-esque instead of like LitRPG. Yeah, other than that, the author does a good job of fleshing out the city stuff. That's one of the things I've always enjoyed about author's writing is how much lore he gives or how much he weaves it into the story to make the place and the setting and the people feel more real. And he definitely does that here. So good kudos to the author on that side. However, I just never really connected to the main character. I've always already mentioned a couple of the reasons why. Another kind of big reason for me was the fact that this entire series, premise of the series, has always been people in tough situations are getting a chance to change who they are and to kind of create a new life. That was definitely a big theme in the Good Guy series. One of the things that I think a lot of readers connect with. The ability to go to a new world, to be a completely different person, and have the opportunity to grow in an RPG fashion and whatever you want to. And instead of that being the case here, the main character essentially chooses to be exactly the same person. He's a thief in real life. It's not a spoiler, it's in the novel description. But, did I read the novel description? I might have. Oh yeah, I did. Okay, sorry, I couldn't remember for a second. But the main character is the thief in real life in our world, and when he gets a chance to go to this other world, he still becomes a thief. He's a rogue, and he automatically has a bunch of like great thief skills that he doesn't again like earn RPG wise. And he's the exact same person. And so I think it was a missed opportunity to be a different kind of character. Again, that's a story choice, but it made it harder for me to essentially connect with this character because he's not really changing. The person he is in our world is the exact same person he is by the end of the first book in this particular story. He doesn't actually change personality wise. He doesn't have any kind of growth in that respect. And so I'm like, oh, that's definitely choice, but he also isn't really a bad guy, which is one of the things I was expecting from the title of the series, which is, the bad guy books. So I'm like, oh, there are no bad guys for the main character. It's like almost expecting a villain story. And that was one of the things that expectations just weren't met. And so it just kind of lowered my enjoyment of the series, or the book, I should say. Overall, while the second half of the story was a bit more entertaining, there's a little more action in there. I was just, again, a little disappointed by the story. And again, these are really just things about me and my expectations for the story. And it's just enough to kind of push me below good for me. The writing is still fine. Action is good. World building is good. It's just that I had expectations for it. I'd hoped to connect more with the story and love it as much as I did the Good Guy series, and I just didn't, unfortunately. So for me, it's going to get a 6 out of 10. I do plan to read book number 2, and I hope that it improves and that I enjoy it more. I'm a fan of the author's writing, so I have good expectations for it. But this one just didn't connect for me. So that's what it is. So that's Scamps and Scoundrels, a LitRPG Gamelit adventure, the Bad Guy book series, book number 1, with a score of 6 out of 10.